Charles Lovin Jr. was convicted for the December 28th shooting death of his father, stepmother, and 9-year-old sister. At the time of their deaths, Lovin insisted that his entire family was possessed by demons and that the only way to free their souls was to shoot them in the head. Today, Lovin still sticks to part of that story. He says that his parents practiced witchcraft, but he was afraid to admit it to anyone.
At the time, I was terrified of my father. At that reason, I couldn't talk to him to begin with. I couldn't talk to other people. Says, why can't you talk to your father? Well, you see, he's a warlock and my stepmother's a witch. I talk to anybody else, you never can tell.
But Lovin added the real problem that drove him to kill his family was his father's addiction to narcotics and his repeated sexual advances to his brothers and sisters. He says the problem mounted to a point where he could take it no longer.
Worry about my sister, the rest of my family, how they was going to be when they grew up. And then all the disappointments over the past 3.5 years, all balled up into one tangled, uncontrollable hate, and it was just the heat of the moment. The one thing that come to my mind before I actually got up and executed the events was that, okay, well, I'm going to get him, I'm tired of it. I want to get him back for all the hurt I've got. And I got up and I shot him, and then things just got out of hand. I was just shooting whatever moved.
In Ada, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
Just as cattle moved up and down the Chisholm Trail of old, herds of cars now move along the modern trail. Old Highway 81 was named after the famous route today by Governor George Nye. The new name means new construction and improvements for the entire 227-mile roadway. It also represents a goal come true for the governor. It's his first transportation program brought about by long-range planning. The old, soon-to-be new highway runs through the entire state, from its northern border with Kansas to its southern border with Texas. 4 major towns line its path: Enid, El Reno, Chickasha, and Duncan. The governor appeared in each town today to explain the benefits of the Heritage Highway. The obvious advantage is tourism, but the biggest benefit is the fact that 81 parallels with $15 million worth of Rock Island track that was just purchased by the state.
So it's a double-barrel significance today that from north to south across the entire state, with El Reno at literally the midway point, we are improving all of the highway and saving all of the railroad.
Governor Nye's new Chisholm Trail will cost $38.5 million and will take about 5 years to complete. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in El Reno. The body of the 32-year-old oil company executive was found on the morning of September 1st. The discovery came shortly after a park ranger found the man's car at the top of a ravine near Lake Overholser. Charles Hayes was found at the bottom of the canal with his throat slashed. Oklahoma City police had few leads in the murder until they received an anonymous phone call.
The foreman explained to us that there were 2 people involved in the homicide, that they had been bragging about the commission of the crime. We began an investigation in that direction, and the investigation began to snowball. The information we had received from the informant began to look better and better.
26-year-old Eddie Lawrence has now been arrested and jailed for first-degree murder. Police are still looking for his suspected accomplice, but Detective Cook says that arrest will probably be made at the first of the week. A motive has now been determined for the murder: robbery. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
We did promise them there will be a spa. There is going to be a spa. If everyone could be here tonight at 7 o'clock that is interested in our spa in any way related, that we're all going to get together and let the truth be known so that everyone who has a different story won't be telling different stories.
Are the people who invested in this, bought memberships, things like that, are they going to get something for their money, or are they going to lose something, or what?
When Griffin Hall was completed back in 1918, it was considered a premier facility. Sometimes the dormitory housed up to 200 patients. But treatment of the mentally ill has changed drastically in the past 64 years. We no longer warehouse mental patients. The large wards of Griffin Hall couldn't keep up with that change. It wasn't practical to remodel the old building to meet current safety standards. So when the legislature set aside enough money to build a new facility, the decision was made to demolish Griffin Hall. The employees who worked on these wards have mixed feelings about the demise of their memory-laden building.
To me, it's very sad seeing the building disappear. Of course, they probably have not been using it for quite some time.
You know, I could not come today no matter what. Yes, I'm a little sentimental about it today, yes. But still glad all in all. We've made a lot of progress at Central State, and I look this as a forward step for us, nothing else but to move on forward.
The wrecking bars will demolish Griffin Hall within the next few weeks. The wreckers hope to finish their work by October 8th. That's when state dignitaries are scheduled to break ground for a new 205-bed facility across campus from Griffin Hall. Scott Wallace, Action 4 Norman.
Central State University in Edmond is proud of its record when it comes to minority enrollment. School administrators say they actively encourage minority students to attend CSU. But a civil rights report says despite good progress in integrating colleges, Oklahoma can do better. The report goes on to say more black teachers are needed in universities. Dr. Doretha Gaffney has been working at CSU's economics department for the last 7 years. In that time, she says more black professors have been hired in Oklahoma, but says the location of some schools has kept black teachers from state colleges.
There are a lot of institutions in the state of Oklahoma whereby I think that it would be difficult for blacks to teach and have a livelihood in these communities. They are a little isolated, and the social climates are not as conducive as it would be here in the metropolitan area, and there are a lot of factors.
Dr. Gaffney is encouraged by efforts made in Oklahoma to lure qualified black instructors to the Sooner State. But until the government is satisfied, Oklahoma colleges are likely to continue under a federally mandated desegregation plan. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at Central State University.
I don't know why they can just shoot. That's our house. And I don't want our car.
One local business feeling the effects of the shutdown is Acme Brick. They rely on the railway system to bring bricks into the Oklahoma City plant for distribution. These empty cars on Acme's sideline were the last to bring bricks to the company, and that was last Friday. There are 9 of these cars somewhere between Little Rock, Arkansas and Oklahoma City, with over 1 million pounds of brick waiting to be unloaded at Acme. But that won't happen until the engineers go back to work. Acme officials say the supply they have now will not last another week, so Acme, like most companies affected by the strike, will have to resort to trucking their products, something that takes time to organize when a business was solely dependent on the railroad. But according to one Oklahoma trucking official, there are some products a truck can simply not haul.
It's not going to affect us in the long run because of the fact that the commodities that the American railroads haul today are lumbers, grain, steel, things of this nature that we can't haul because of the weight limits on the highway and under the ICC ruling, the amount of weight that we can haul. They're maintaining bulk freight, and it's such cheap freight that the American trucker cannot maintain at the price of the economy today.
Some experts are saying that thousands of businesses like Acme Brick are being affected across the nation and are costing the national economy as much as $1 billion a day. And it looks as though the federal government may intervene to get the trains moving again. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
They rather felt I was embarrassing the church. I was immoral. I can't remember all of the specifics because I just saw it briefly on Sunday. There are just a few members that must sign this in order to bring it before the board, which must bring it before the congregation, you see. I'm very glad, however, I supported parimutuel horse racing. I believe it's in the best interest of all of Oklahoma, especially to help feed people, especially to bring in more jobs, especially to raise the quality of life. I think that's a very important issue.
Rescue teams and Air Force personnel rushed to the side of the crashed T-37 jet trainer. Firemen doused the charred remains of the shattered craft, while Air Force personnel roped off the crash site. The jet went down shortly before noon in a field east of Enid. The pilot, 22-year-old John Gomez, was on a solo flight when he was forced to eject from the descending craft.
We don't have any other details on the cause of the crash, and we'll convene a board to examine the mishap and try to determine the causes. As long as we've been flying, we've had some accidents, and ATC's had the lowest accident record in the Air Force, and it's been extremely low for the past year, and I can't explain this particular one.
Nugent says investigating teams hope to find the cause of the crash by searching through the craft remains. For further investigation, Air Force personnel are setting up camp at the crash site. Debbie Mash, Action 4, near Enid.
Industries from coal fields to auto assembly plants began moving back to normal today after a 4-day walkout by rail engineers left many industries high and dry. Oklahoma City's General Motors plant was not drastically affected by the strike. GM resident comptroller Walton Mayer says a last-minute shuffle avoided a serious problem.
It was an hour-to-hour type of operation. One missed car, one miscalculation, and we'd have been down. But our people did a fine job, and I'm just thankful that we didn't have to shut down. Our people have had all the time off they want.
At the Flint Santa Fe rail yard in Oklahoma City, more than 300 workers honored picket lines. Supervisory personnel were able to run the rail yard without any major mishaps. None of the Oklahoma City's major rail customers were drastically affected by the walk-off. The trainmaster R.F. Smith was glad to get back behind the desk instead of the engine.
General Motors normally receives approximately 30 to 40 cars per day inbound auto parts, and every car they ordered in that was available in Oklahoma City, we did spot. And
so they didn't lose any service?
That's correct, locally.
The last time rail engineers called a nationwide strike was in 1946. That's more than 35 years of successful collective bargaining. Many of the engineers feel that negotiation is the proper way to handle problems, and they hope the next time they reach an impasse, it doesn't take an act of Congress to get back to work. In southeast Oklahoma City, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
Home computer enthusiast Greg Leslie is about to sit down and listen to one of his favorite tunes. Not only will Greg hear the song, he'll see the melody appear before his eyes through the use of his home computer. Greg is just one of millions who are using their extra time and money on home computers. Why would a man take out a $3,000 loan to buy something like this? He says the computers are the way of the future, no matter who you are. Being used for word processing, figuring out taxes, and schoolwork are just a few functions the home computer can perform. Greg says knowing the computer capabilities will give you a jump on the rest of the population.
The people who have a knowledge of computers are going to be ahead of the game in a few years. Not necessarily the key punch operators, such like that, but people who have a working knowledge of what a computer's about, not how it works inside or anything like that, but the basic structure of a computer system, what its capabilities are.
Home computer stores couldn't be happier about the growing demand for computers. Even though technology is changing the face of computers all the time, units made today should last years and be able to increase their functions. Popularity can easily be measured at the cash register.
There's been a doubling of our business, I would say, in the past 12 months. More people are getting them at home, therefore they're showing more of their neighbors, and more people are seeing that, gosh, old Joe Normal's doing great with his computer, I can do it too.
It looks like the computer boom is here to stay because Americans like convenience, and these machines make life a lot easier. It's like having a friend nearby.
I may be taking your job soon at school. Atari computer, Action 4.
Once they got inside, they found that there were sticks, 6 sticks, wooden sticks, wrapped in brown paper. There were wires attached to them. There were wires attached to two wall thermostats, and also 2 tape packages that appeared to be batteries. These were in a small briefcase.
This could have been a prank.
It was definitely a prank.
Like most universities in the state, Central State in Edmond has seen a huge increase in enrollment in the past 5 years. University officials are glad to see the school grow, but with growth comes problems, namely housing. This is Melanie Chappell. Melanie is one of the lucky ones. She enrolled last March for the fall semester and was guaranteed a dorm room. University housing is relatively cheap and extremely convenient. Melanie feels privileged to be allowed to live on campus.
When you live in the dorms, you get to meet a lot of the girls, and you get more involved in what's going around because the dorm can inform you on what's going on around campus. The only time you can tell it's really crowded is late at night when everybody starts coming in and makes a lot of noise. And when you go into the bathrooms sometimes, and it's real crowded, but it's really not that bad. Having 2 people in a room is not that bad at all.
But not all students are as fortunate. Central State has a long waiting list for dormitories. And as long as the enrollment continues to grow, University Vice President Carl Rehrman says it's a problem we'll have to contend with.
What we're looking at is a community like Edmond that is hard-pressed for housing just for people who live here,
But when you impose that at the beginning of each school year, yes, it is a crunch. It is now leveled off because people have been able to find housing either in Oklahoma City or one of the other surrounding areas.
Like all students that live in the dormitory, Melanie will have to reapply for housing next year. She hopes to apply early enough so that when she leaves her room for summer break, she'll have one to come back to. In Edmond, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
So here's what you get. $10 night for the lifetime guarantee.
Even when you're not on the Midway, there are people all over the state fair trying to get your money. Some of them may even offer something in return. But the Oklahoma Tax Commission is at the fair too, and they're trying to give money away. $3 million of it to people passing by their booth. Now the term giveaway may be a little misleading. The state is really trying to find the people or their relatives who belong to unclaimed oil or mineral leases, deposits, bank accounts, or insurance policies. Most of the amounts are small, but one of them is as high as $19,000. And some people are finding a little extra at the state fair.
We've had people from all over the state. We've had people from other states even who are visiting here for the fair, and they all think it's just terrific that we come out here and do this public service for them. And people are very surprised. The ones that say, oh, I wouldn't have any money, they're the ones that we usually find an aunt or a grandmother or you know, an uncle or a relative, nephews, even children. And they're just thrilled to death.
Do you have anything on your list for Schnetzer?
Schnitzer?
Right, Schnetzer.
S-C-H.
S-C-H. N-E-T-Z-E-R.
Okay, S-C-H. No, I'm sorry, not this time.
All right, well, thank you. Well, my name wasn't on the list, but your name might be. There are 55,000 people who have unclaimed money or unclaimed mineral rights waiting for them here at the State Fair. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4, at the Oklahoma State Fair.
The Welfare Department raises 2,500 cattle and assorted pigs and hogs at its institutions. The animals are fattened to help feed residents at department facilities. A bombshell audit released by the state auditor's office today claims some of those animals were used to fatten DHS employees' pocketbooks. The special audit reveals several instances where Welfare Department supervisors sold their personal livestock to the state, an apparent violation of Oklahoma law. The audit documents numerous cases where department officials circumvented state competitive bidding procedures. And the report details dozens of occurrences where commissioned buyers collected fees even though they had nothing to do with livestock purchases. The audit raises serious legal questions about how the Welfare Department conducted its beef business.
Anytime that the statutes are being violated on a consistent basis knowingly by state officials, that's serious. This audit has been forwarded to the District Attorney's Office and also to the Attorney General's Office for them to review, and we're hopeful to pursue prosecution.
The State Auditor and Inspector's Office has completed 2 audits of the DHS this summer, and both of those audits turned up allegations of serious wrongdoing in the DHS. Now the Inspector's Office says it is pursuing further allegations of DHS wrongdoing, and the results of those audits will be released as soon as they're complete. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the State Capitol.
The child was apparently beaten to death and may have been sexually molested. We do have a 16-year-old suspect in custody at police headquarters. Witnesses reported having seen the suspect late last night with the little girl. We arrested him shortly after the body was discovered nearby at his grandmother's residence.
Can you tell us about where the little girl...
This is a large marijuana patch due to the fact that most of the patches that we're finding are maybe 8 or 10 plants, and they're not, 200 plus plants. They're just not that kind of operation. This is the largest patch of marijuana that has been found in this county in several years.
This is a temporary situation, and it's going to be stormy for a while, but I think we'll be able to ride it out. I'm very in control. Mechanically, how they're going to do it. It's just not automatic. I have proposed a situation that would be voluntary. If the depositor wished to have additional insurance, he could buy up to $900,000 more by paying a small premium himself and having that insured by the FDIC. In other words, he could have a total of $1 million per account insured, and I think that would help restore confidence. I've asked the FDIC to conduct a study of it to show us what the premiums would be, whether or not we could allow the private insurance companies to participate with the government on it so we could allow free enterprise in, and they're to report back to us in 6 months on their findings.
Taken at the 10-yard line, back to the 15, and to about the 19-yard line. Fouls under, fakes to cross right, drops back, looking for Harrison, throwing, Harrison's open at the 30. Third receiver, Melvin on a keeper, 2nd and 10 from Nebraska's 45-yard line. Intended. Wiley comes in.
Brake repair job, and they were in good shape. New brakes had been placed on it. Sometime called him, asked him if he had the information, and he said,
actually warned.
Had this evidence been presented to me during that period of time when I was waiting, these charges would not have been filed. And consequently, at this time, since we cannot say conclusively what would have happened had those brakes worked properly, today I am dropping the 2 negligent homicide charges against Alan Massey.
And what I've told them is that we wouldn't have a chance to compile anything because it,
areas where we could
I had 30 agents, they would have the authority and the ability to take care of it.
As I perceive the purpose of this committee, and really this was the governor's initial idea, and that was to see if we don't have some overlapping functions and responsibilities in this area and try to streamline it and be a little more efficient and cut down on the overlapping. Now that's the way I see the purpose of the committee.